See, मेरे करियर में अभी 25 साल हो गए म्यूचुअल फंड में काम करते हुए। सो आई एम सॉरी टू से दिस बट मुझे 10% फॉल कुछ क्रैक या प्रॉब्लम दिखता नहीं है।
Okay.
इनफैक्ट मुझे ये करेक्शन हेल्थी लगता है बिकॉज
Mhm.
मार्केट एक डायरेक्शन कंटिन्यू करते जाएंगे तो देन यू आर बिल्डिंग अप अ बबल। SEBI as a regulator is very clear that you cannot put all your eggs in one basket. So they've given you sector limits, stock limits, etc. So that even if let's say 2-3 companies don't do well, ठीक नहीं करते, hopefully the portfolio continues to give you better returns. The average portfolio is better. अगर आप SIP through करोगे तो I think the investment experience will be
Mhm.
far safer for you. So for
Okay.
people who are coming into mid caps, small caps for the first time, my suggestion is SIP करो, get a taste of it.
हेलो एवरीवन, मेरा नाम नम्रता अरोरा है। वेलकम बैक टू म्यूचुअल फंड की बात। म्यूचुअल फंड की बात में हम ग्लोबल और इंडियन इकोनॉमिक कंडीशन, कमोडिटी, स्टॉक मार्केट, म्यूचुअल फंड, इन सब के बारे में बात करते हैं। और आज हमारे इस एपिसोड में भी है वेरी रिनाउंड पर्सनैलिटी फ्रॉम द म्यूचुअल फंड इंडस्ट्री। आज हमारे साथ है मिस्टर राघव अयंगर, हु इज द चीफ एग्जीक्यूटिव ऑफिसर एट 361 असेट, earlier known as IIFL Asset Management. He comes with a rich experience of over 3 decades in the financial services sector. Mr. Raghav Iyengar strengthens 361 Asset's strategic direction and growth agenda and works closely with the investment teams to enhance the organization's market presence. He is responsible for the overall business strategy, designing the product suite and various distribution strategies, leveraging international teams to support different markets, and leading discussions with institutional investors. He is also deeply involved in risk management, compliance, and regulatory affairs. Prior to joining 361 Asset, he served as a president and chief business officer at Axis Asset Management, where he led retail and institutional sales, marketing, digital, business intelligence, public relations, and investor services. His extensive experience includes significant tenures with ICICI Prudential Asset Management and Tata Asset Management. Hello everyone, welcome back to Mutual Fund Ki Baat. I am Namrata Arora and thank you so much for joining us again this week. हम हर हफ्ते ट्राई करते हैं टू गेट अ न्यू स्पीकर फॉर ऑल ऑफ यू जिनका अलग पर्सपेक्टिव हो regarding all the questions that we get for all of you every week, and we try to do a theme based podcast. तो आज हमारे साथ हैं मिस्टर राघव अयंगर, हु इज द CEO ऑफ 361 म्यूचुअल फंड, एंड इनको हम पहली बार अपने शो में लेके आ रहे हैं. सो राघव, फर्स्टली वेलकम टू म्यूचुअल फंड की बात, एंड वी आर वेरी वेरी एक्साइटेड to hear your perspective on all the questions that we
Thank you.
have.
Thank you, Namita ji. It's a real honor to be here. मुझे बहुत टाइम से ये शो पे आने का था. I think finally I get my chance in 2025. So thank you very much. I think I'm episode number 100 plus.
Yeah.
So yes, at least I made it in the first. I thought I'll make it in the first 100, but I just missed it.
No problem. But thank you so much for giving us your time today. I mean, better late than never. And we've heard a lot of amazing things about you and how wonderfully you talk. So, I'm sure हमारे viewers को आज बहुत कुछ सीखने के लिए मिलेगा. Raghav, जब भी हम ये podcast शुरू करते हैं, हमारा पहला सवाल is generally around the economy, and I think ये perfect time होगा to ask you about the economy, क्योंकि हम इतना सारा market volatility देख रहे हैं. हमारे जो भी व्यूअर्स हैं, इन्वेस्टर्स हैं, उनको भी काफी स्ट्रेस हो रहा है. इट्स नॉट अ वेरी हैप्पी एनवायरनमेंट फॉर द इन्वेस्टर्स. हमने देखा है कि इंडियन स्टॉक मार्केट जो है रिसेंटली क्रैश बिकॉज ऑफ द क्रूड ऑयल प्राइसेस गोइंग अप. बहुत सारे जियोपॉलिटिकल इश्यूज चल रहे हैं, रुपीज क्रैशिंग अगेंस्ट द डॉलर, एफपीआईज पैसा निकाल रहे हैं, इतना सब कुछ हो रहा है. यूएस में वी रियलाइज और वी आर सीइंग कि the hope of the US Fed rate cut is not going great. So what do you think in this context? आप ये बताइए कि as an equity investor, जब मैं एक ऐसा environment देख रही हूँ मेरे सामने कि इतना सब कुछ हो रहा है, market volatility हो रही है, and let's understand this कि बहुत सारे investors ने पिछले 3-4 साल में पैसा equities में डाला है, which means उन्होंने ऐसा fall नहीं देखा है. This is the first time that they're seeing this, right?
Correct.
तो आप ये बताइए कि एज एन इन्वेस्टर अभी हमें क्या करना चाहिए, एंड ये जो वॉलिटिलिटी हम देख रहे हैं ये कब तक चलेगी?
Namrata, that is a $1 trillion question because see, मेरे करियर में अभी 25 साल हो गए म्यूचुअल फंड में काम करते हुए. सो आई एम सॉरी टू से दिस बट मुझे 10% फॉल कुछ क्रैक या प्रॉब्लम दिखता नहीं है.
Okay.
इनफैक्ट मुझे ये करेक्शन हेल्थी लगता है बिकॉज मार्केट एक डायरेक्शन कंटिन्यू करते जाएंगे तो देन यू आर बिल्डिंग अप अ बबल. Because what is our equity market, Namrata, today? It is nothing but the sum of our economy, right?
Correct.
And exactly like you said, the last 5 6 months economy thoda बैठ गया.
Yeah.
If you go back and see June July May, we were happily cruising at 6.5. People were talking of 7.5% GDP growth.
Yeah.
Now आज के माहौल पे, if you saw the last quarter print, it came at 5.4%.
Sure.
Obviously, you cannot have a situation where your equity market is at 85,000 index and your economy is growing at 5.5%. Something has to give. And these are not things like ये इतने जल्दी नहीं होता है कि अरे यार ये गलती हो गया, राइट लेना चाहिए था, चलो थोड़ा आगे जाके मुड़ के वापस से आते हैं.
Hmm.
Think of the economy as a very very large ship, so it takes time to turn, right?
Yeah.
अभी हम हमको दिख रहा है राइट नाउ, लास्ट 4 5 महीने में देयर हैज बीन अ स्लाइट स्लो डाउन इन गवर्नमेंट एक्सपेंडिचर टुवर्ड्स कैपिटल. अभी capital expenditure has actually been forming the large part of our economy growth in the
Yeah.
last 3 4 years, and that is a stated government policy. PLI schemes, lots of infrastructure development, lots of facilities for manufacturing, etc.,
Yeah.
etc. So, थोड़ा last 6 7 महीने में, for whatever reason, it has slowed down. On the other side, there has also been some slight tightening around credit by
Yeah.
the Reserve Bank. Basically, उनको थोड़ा चिंता हो रहा था कि there is lending happening, maybe in sectors which are a little weak. So ये दोनों factors मिलके that has contributed to a slight fall in the GDP growth. Now, the interesting thing is that we understand that government is recognized this fact. There's also a change of guard in the RBI. So,
Hmm.
so again, these two, I think these two are the big, if you ask me, double engine hai hamare. I think on one
Hmm.
side you have the RBI, one side you have the government, and between these two, I think again uh, there is some there is some possibility that things will get back to how they were, maybe January, February, March. But like I said, this is a huge ship. Just by recognizing something instantly, next day नहीं होता.
Yeah.
At the same time, आपने जो बोला था, all that is also happening. There is
Yeah.
uncertainty in the world. We have a new US president coming next week. He is he's a very volatile person.
Hmm.
He makes comments, and he's. But the good thing is he's pro growth.
Hmm.
If you look at Trump, he's very very pro growth, right? And he
Okay.
has a reasonably good equation with India. So hopefully, India US relations will only get better. Uh, I have seen in my career that people can say what they want when they are outside the chair, but एक बार कुर्सी में बैठ जाते हैं तो उनका पर्सपेक्टिव अलग हो जाता है.
हाँ.
So this, and what has happened in the last 3 4 months is that thanks to Trump coming in, the US dollar has strengthened because people are expecting interest rates to come down. जब interest rate नीचे आते हैं, there is some move of money to emerging markets.
Yeah.
In emerging markets, India is actually a hero market. I mean, you will not believe this statistic, but I also had to see it 3 4 times before I got onto your interview. In the last 20 years, 15% of our companies in the BSE 500 have given 20% compounding returns.
Wow.
There
Okay.
is no other emerging market which is coming even close to this. इसके बाद ताइवान आता है, बहुत दूर है पीछे. चाइना तो बहुत दूर है. To give you a converse, only two markets have done well in the last 5 years. एक है US और एक है India. The percentage of companies giving more than 20% compounded growth in the US is only 7%. So half the number of companies.
Yeah.
But this is a 20-year period, right? This is not a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year period. So my advice to all of people, including myself, is that yeah, don't worry about these things. In fact, these corrections are healthy. They should be used to look at your asset allocation. And based on that asset allocation, आपको अगर लगता है कि थोड़ा equity डाल सकते हैं, you can start getting into this. Because
Okay.
our view is that I think the economy will start picking up very very nicely over the next 3 4 months. The India story is absolutely intact. I think
Okay.
we have the youngest population in the world. We have adopted digital. We have a huge amount of financial inclusion जो कर रहे हैं. आपका channel is an interesting place. I mean today almost 1 in 4 5 SIPs are coming through Groww. I mean, just to give you a sense, Namrata, 10 साल पहले there was no Groww.
Yeah.
And just so, can you just see that transformation? It is an
Yeah.
example of yourself itself. I mean, you don't have
Yeah.
to go outside very much to think about it, right? So when you think of this, and but at the same time, has there been stress? Last 5 6 months, mein there is stress. Will there be stress over the next 5 6 months? Definitely, because corporate results are expected. This third quarter results are expected. As we are speaking, some are good, some are bad, but they are not excellent. I think the market had a view that अभी ये पूजा के कारण, holidays के कारण, एंड ऑफ ईयर के कारण आई थिंक द रिजल्ट्स विल गेट वेरी बेटर. आई डोंट थिंक दैट हैज हैपेंड सो फार. My sense is, but whatever we when we speak to companies, when we talk to their management, हम लोग जो टेस्ट चेक करते हैं ग्राउंड पे टू सी व्हाट इज हैपनिंग, देयर इज अ सेंस ऑफ इम्प्रूवमेंट. नाउ विल दैट इम्प्रूवमेंट रिफ्लेक्ट इन मार्च रिजल्ट्स और जून रिजल्ट्स, वो पता नहीं, बट देयर इज अ सेंस ऑफ इम्प्रूवमेंट. And equity markets are always forward looking, so you don't wait for, you always buy in terms of anticipation. So right now there is this mood of pessimism that यार सब खराब चल रहा है, इकोनॉमी बैठ गया है, 7.5% सोच रहे थे, 6% भी नहीं होने वाला है, ट्रम्प आके क्या करने वाला है, एफ आई आउटफ्लो इज हैपनिंग ऑलमोस्ट डेली एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा. But people are missing out the positives. So I say don't worry about it. India is a great compounding market. If you can be a bit patient in this market, maybe this is the time to think of adding some money rather than
Okay.
getting worried about it.
जब हम लॉजिकली सोचते हैं ना राघव जी, तो ऑब्वियसली वी कैन से कि दिस इज अ ग्रेट टाइम टू ऐड मोर मनी, कि अभी मार्केट नीचे है तो अच्छा समय है, अपॉर्चुनिटी है एज एन इन्वेस्टर कि आप और पैसा इसमें इन्वेस्ट कर सकते हैं. लेकिन ऑफ कोर्स बिहेवियरली स्पीकिंग ऐसा नहीं होता है, क्योंकि हम सब काफी इमोशनल हो जाते हैं अपने पैसे को लेके.
Namrata, I want to correct you there. Sorry, 1 minute.
Sure.
Last month of December, where
हाँ
आपको
हाँ.
पता है market again was not great, it corrected a lot.
Yes.
Mutual funds, equity and balanced and hybrid funds, which are largely equity driven, में 50,000 crore का net flow आया है. Excess of
अच्छा.
exit number is 51,000. So there
Okay.
are a lot of smart people who are watching channels like yours, who are actually following what you're telling them to do.
Yeah. Then I'm glad that there's a difference that we are able to create in
That's it.
terms of
That's it.
understanding.
That's the real data. That's a fact of
Right.
life. I mean, so
Okay.
there are a set of people who are obviously
Yeah.
worried, depressed, etc., etc. But there are a lot of other people who are very actually, if you ask me, a little happy.
Smart about
कि थोड़ा
investing.
मार्केट गिर गया, मुझे टाइम मिल गया आने के लिए, जो
Sure.
पहले 4-5 महीने नहीं मिल रहे थे उस
नहीं होता था.
टाइम.
ओके. बट राघव जी, आप बोल रहे हैं कि अगले 3-4 महीने में शायद हम देखेंगे कि एक अपवर्ड ट्रेंड होगा, एटलीस्ट मार्केट्स का पिकअप होंगी. तो हेल्प अस अंडरस्टैंड कि ऐसे कौन से सेक्टर्स होंगे जो आपको लगता है कि शॉर्ट टर्म में अच्छा करेंगे. मतलब अगर हमें 1-2 साल का व्यू पॉइंट लेके किसी सेक्टर्स में इन्वेस्ट करना है, तो किस सेक्टर में इन्वेस्ट करना चाहिए, एंड लुकिंग एट द इंडिया स्टोरी एंड लुकिंग एट द लॉन्ग टर्म स्टोरी, ऐसे कौन से सेक्टर्स हैं जिनमें हम अगर अभी इन्वेस्ट करते हैं तो हमें बहुत अच्छे रिटर्न्स मिलेंगे, मे बी ओवर अ पीरियड ऑफ 5-10 years.
Namrata, see, I'm not a fan of sector funds. I'm sorry, because what happens is in sector funds, uh,
Yeah.
अंदर इन्वेस्ट करने में बहुत आसान है. The
Hmm.
challenge in sector funds is to redeem.
Sure.
Most investors don't have that ability to think of when to get out. So actually, sector funds are a little, they are for very evolved investors. I mean,
Okay.
someone who has already got a very large equity portfolio, who has seen 4-5, उन्होंने जो 4-5 ups and downs देखा है.
Mm-hmm.
मोर इम्पोर्टेंटली उनको डिसिप्लिन है उनके पास, दैट ठीक है अभी पैसे बन गए निकाल दो.
Hmm.
But obviously, given this whole thing, I think if the whole capex cycle starts forming again, industrials are a very good place to put money.
Okay.
Financial services are an interesting place to put money. Obviously, transportation is a great place to put money. Anything which is basic will come. Abhi
Okay.
tak, what we have seen so far is but at the same time, you must understand that India has always been a consumption story.
Yeah.
Right? If you see the last 3-4 साल में, it's been a capex story. जहाँ पे investment theme has got more prominence as compared to consumption. That's the story
Sure.
since 2021.
Okay.
But many of those companies in the consumption sector have also not are looking very attractive from a valuation perspective.
Hmm.
Which is where my limited point is that either you have the ability to track all these companies, all those nuances. Matlab, it's just not watching CNBC or any great channel or
Hmm.
watching your channel for 2-3 hours a day. You will become a stock market expert. And
Hmm.
there are people in our team who have more than 25-30 years of experience. उन्होंने 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 साइकिल देखे हैं. They have a certain discipline in buying and a discipline in selling.
Yep.
And I think that's what. So if you ask me as a first time investor, I would go for something like a flexi cap fund because it allows
Sure.
you to do whatever you want. The construction is very, very simple.
Yeah.
For evolved investors, obviously sectoral funds are great. Within sector funds, obviously the names are the sectors I told you are interesting sectors to look at basically.
Okay. Okay. So, since we are talking about sectors and we're talking about equity in general, हमने ये भी देखा है कि equity mutual funds in general, there are different categories जिन्होंने बहुत अच्छे returns दिए compared to other investments over the last 10 years, and
Yes. Yes.
आपने खुद ही अभी बताया था. तो क्या इक्विटी फंड्स एक अच्छा इन्वेस्टमेंट माना जा सकता है टू गेट इन्फ्लेशन बीटिंग रिटर्न? तो आप अपना पर्सपेक्टिव बताइए ऑन इक्विटी फंड्स, राइट? क्योंकि अगर आप बोल रहे हैं कि सेक्टरल इन्वेस्टिंग नहीं करना चाहिए, नॉट ग्रेट फ्रॉम अ रिस्क पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू, तो आप ये बताइए कि अगर हम इक्विटी फंड्स की ही बात करते हैं, विच आर दोज कैटेगरीज जो आपको लगता है कि अच्छे होंगे? आपने फ्लेक्सी कैप के बारे में बात किया, बट टेल अस आर देयर मोर कैटेगरीज जो आपको लगता है कि जिसमें हमें इन्वेस्ट करना चाहिए? और इक्विटी फंड्स इन जनरल क्या एक अच्छा इन्वेस्टमेंट माना जा सकता है फ्रॉम इन्फ्लेशन बीटिंग रिटर्न्स पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू? एंड हम थोड़ा लॉन्ग टर्म पर्सपेक्टिव लेके डिस्कस कर सकते हैं.
Understandable. So let's understand ये inflation होता क्या है? Inflation is nothing but the cost of everyday articles or going up. I mean, classic
Yeah.
case in point is milk, eggs. I mean, if you go back and see, आप देखोगे last say 3 years, at least I don't know Bangalore में क्या हाल है, but Bombay में price of milk has gone up by almost 40-50%.
Yeah.
I'm told by my wife same thing has happened to other day-to-day.
Commodities and goods, yeah.
Now, if you have a certain standard of living, you want to maintain it. You don't want to suddenly realize 5 years later that you used to eat 1 kilo of bhindi, and now because bhindi prices doubled, you have to eat only 300 grams.
Yeah.
So, to protect that standard of living and to obviously try and create some wealth, it has been empirically proved that equities are the best bet, especially if you hold it over long periods of time. And
Sure.
I gave you some examples about those 15% of those companies giving you 20% return. Market also, by the way, has given something close to that number, 14-15% return. And if you take up inflation, देखोगे तो inflation over the last say 20 years has averaged about 7-8%, and it comes down, goes up. We are a combination of internal inflation and external inflation. हमारा external inflation कैसे होता है? Thanks to crude oil. Unfortunately, India imports more than 80% of its requirements of oil.
Yeah.
So we are subject to whatever prices come to us. Now, fortunately, last 3-4-5 साल में crude oil prices have been very very stable. But
Sure.
crude oil is crude oil, so it's a commodity. उसमें समझ में नहीं आता है. So coming back to my original point, I think you have to have good allocation to equities and especially money that you can put away for a long period of time.
Sure.
If you want to beat inflation. Now, in coming to equity mutual funds, I think see various ways to buy equities. One is you do your own research. You get onto very good platforms like आपके platform है, आप where you made investing very very simple.
Yeah.
For a novice as well as for a professional. You can come do your research, buy, sell, do whatever you feel like. The other option is you entrust your money to a set of professionals
Yeah.
who will put it in, which are mutual fund managers. Now, advantage of mutual funds are two. One is obviously आपको professional fund management मिलते हैं. I mean, I have a team of more than 20 people with a combined experience, for example, in 361 of more than 200 years, right? Now, these people have seen markets, they have seen sectors, they have seen companies, they have data, they have databases.
Yeah.
Very, very, उनका day-to-day काम है, Namrata, to do this. I mean, it is their daily job, right? So hopefully they are better at it than a common person like maybe our regular investor, right?
Sure.
And also mutual funds give you diversification because SEBI as a regulator is very, very clear that you cannot put all your eggs in one basket. So they have given you sector limits, stock limits, etc. So that even if let's say 2-3 companies don't do well, ठीक नहीं करते, hopefully the portfolio continues to give you better returns. The average portfolio is better. So these are the broad two choices जो investor के पास है. And I mean now it's up to the investor to decide which bucket or where he wants to go. So many investors I know, Namrata says that yeah, we will put our core money in mutual funds. SIP we will put and we will put some core money which we are very clear. I know I can keep it away for 5-10 years. But there's great fun in trying to, I also want to be a stock trader.
Yeah.
I also want to buy, sell stocks. So I will keep some money for that. It's nice. You have two baskets, put money. But wealth creation in 2025, I mean, to my mind, is going to be a combination of asset allocation. It's not going to be easy to make money in stocks. So last 3-4 साल के journey था, especially if you 22-23, it was reasonably easy to make money in stocks and equity mutual funds. You put money and the market gave you 14-15-16%, and obviously if you're in a good set of stocks or a good fund, you make even more than that. Last year is the first year 24 where you've seen let's say the index giving you less than 10% return after a very long time, right? And if you see the way last 2-3 hafte mein, especially in the new year, you know what has happened.
Yeah.
It's gone a little further down, very very volatile. I mean, one day it's up 1,000 points, एक दिन 1,000 पॉइंट नीचे गिर जाता है, 12 बजे तक सब ठीक है, 12:30 बजे suddenly something happens, somebody makes a statement internationally, कुछ हो जाता है, sanctions on Russia, suddenly oil price
Yeah.
goes from 75 to 80. उसके बाद suddenly देखो तो अरे यार, so I've come out of, I've gone into meetings जहाँ पे markets have been great before getting into the meeting. By the time I come out, देखा अरे यार ये तो 300-400 पॉइंट गिर गया. So
Yeah.
investor has to be able to digest all of that, right? Now that is where I think professionals do a better job because they're used to it. उनका रोज का काम है. I mean, they, it is like you're a fantastic anchor. वो आपका that's your bread and butter business, right?
Yeah.
But to get so that's what they do. Now, if an investor can handle that, perfect, no problem. I mean,
Yeah.
you should have equities in your portfolio. How much of it depends on various things, your age, your risk appetite, what are your long-term goals, etc., etc. I think those are conversations which are very personal and private.
Okay.
So there are risk planners that are available, there are financial partners available, there are things you can do it on your own. But that's an individual journey, Namrata. I don't have a formula to tell you, oh, Namrata, you're 25, 30 years old, and hence you should have 70% equity. वो एक
Yeah.
formula होता है ना, 100 minus age is your equity allocation. I'm not sure if that really, it's a good template, but I think everyone should have their own templates. I mean, I give my own father's example in that he's 84 years old. He doesn't have any touchwood any liabilities. He doesn't need money because
Hmm.
these are people who are very frugal.
Yeah.
Though they have money, they don't spend. So I would put 60% of his money into equity.
Wow. Okay.
He doesn't need the money, so he doesn't
Yes.
bother अगर market goes down. But let's say hypothetically, I have a cousin brother who's 50 years younger than him. He's 30 years
Hmm.
old. Now he has a housing loan, he has a car loan. He's expecting hopefully getting an addition to the family. Now, can I tell him, no, no, you're 30 years old, boss, you go put 70% in equities? No, because obviously his risk profile is very, very unique, right?
Different. Okay.
That's what I'm trying
Okay.
to tell you. So it's different strokes for different strokes. So individuals have to do it. Yes.
राघव जी, आई अंडरस्टैंड कि हर इंसान का रिस्क प्रोफाइल अलग होता है एंड रिक्वायरमेंट्स अलग होते हैं, लाइफ स्टेजेस अलग होती हैं, जिसकी वजह से आपका पोर्टफोलियो बिल्कुल अलग होगा. बट लेट मी आस्क यू अ सिंपल क्वेश्चन. हमारे जो मोस्ट ऑफ द व्यूअर्स होते हैं वो डायरेक्ट इन्वेस्ट करते हैं थ्रू आवर प्लेटफॉर्म्स, राइट, विच मीन्स दे नॉट गोइंग थ्रू एन एडवाइजर. तो ऐसे इन्वेस्टर्स के लिए अगर उनको कुछ एवरग्रीन फंड सेलेक्ट करने हैं, राइट, विच मीन्स ऐसे कुछ फंड्स हो इरिस्पेक्टिव ऑफ योर रिस्क प्रोफाइल जो आपको वेल्थ क्रिएशन में मदद करें, एंड लेट्स से यू लुकिंग एट अ इन्वेस्टमेंट होराइजन ऑफ 10 to 15 years, तो आप हमें ये बताइए वो एवरग्रीन फंड्स कौन से हो सकते हैं in an investor's portfolio who's
I
trying to go direct.
So I think category wise, Namrata, दो category है, which in my opinion are evergreen categories, and
Okay.
I have a, I mean this is my personal experience also, so please take that with a pinch of salt.
Sure.
I am a big believer in multi-asset category,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm a big believer in flexi cap category
Okay.
because in दोनों में क्या हुआ है, the multi-asset you get the fund manager has ability to do different asset classes.
Sure.
अभी आप जानते हो, for example, last year, for example, gold gave a fabulous return.
Yeah.
Right. Now, obviously, a smart investor would have gone and said, Chalo, I will take out money from X and I'll put it in gold. But most of us don't have that one time. Number two, we are seeing data after it is already published.
Hmm.
तो हमको दिखा रहे यार 25 बिगनिंग में भी सी हो रही है, गोल्ड इज डाउन 1 year 24% रिटर्न or whatever some number I was reading in some newspaper. I said, yeah, we should have gotten. So multi-asset is a great place because the fund manager then has ability to do gold, silver, debt, and put it
Yeah.
all in one scheme so that the incidents when he moves from, say, he sells gold, gets into equity, or sells equity, buys debt, वहाँ पे
Hmm.
टैक्स नहीं लगता है because it's under a
Yeah.
mutual fund scheme. If
Yeah.
we try to do it individually, हमको टैक्स लगेंगे depending on
Yeah.
short term, long term, which is a significant part of your return, especially
Yeah.
if you're in the short term space.
Yeah.
The other category I like very much is flexi cap because flexi
Yeah.
cap is something which, again, if you give money to a good fund manager who has a good process, who's got a good track record, like I
Hmm.
said, somebody who's seen various market cycles, fund manager can then decide whether to go into mid cap, large cap, small cap, whatever sector they want to do as per regulation. So
Yeah.
it's like a go anywhere fund in the equity space. So these are two categories I personally like, but below that, the industry has some fabulous. We've got too much choice for the investor actually. So
Okay.
other advice to the investor is don't get carried away by recent performance because sometimes we'll see. We have seen in the last couple of 3-4 years that defense as an industry has done very, very well, right?
Hmm.
Done possibly the best sector in 24 was the whole defense
Sure.
sector. It's done really well and for right reasons, I'm sure. But now seeing that past return of 1 year, somebody gets into that and says, "Abhi mujhe isme jana hai," may not be the wisest thing to do because stocks are already at an elevated level. I'm not saying they'll crash or all that, but expecting a similar return just by seeing last 1 year performance may not
Hmm.
be the best thing to do. So at least आप एक equity fund में my view is at least एक 5 साल का track record देखिए. Three,
Okay.
1 year, 3 year, 5 year are good track records to have, and then see it, and then be a bit patient because
Sure.
I think the challenge that all of us face today, especially आपके investor, is a bit of patience.
Yeah.
SIPs are stopping because people are getting frustrated. They would have put some SIP in June, maybe they would have seen something. They would have seen last 1 year returns, 23, 24
Hmm.
returns were fantastic. So June, May, they would have great excitement. They would have started a SIP. Then I know, and one problem that we all have is that we are so transparent that you can see your portfolio 4 times a day.
Yeah.
तो वो एक प्रॉब्लम है. It's great and it's good and it's bad. It's good because it's extremely transparent. Our regulator SEBI has made this industry super transparent. I mean, there is
Hmm.
every data that you need for an investor is available easily in the public domain.
Yeah.
But at the other side is that it's also very easy to transact. So if you see something and you say, "यार यार 6 महीने तक मैंने SIP चला नहीं, चलो अभी इसको बंद करते हैं."
Hmm.
Then it's like literally you're paying. I have a I have a saying on this. You're like, you see a dog catching his own tail. वो घूमते रहता है
Yeah.
basically. So he's
Hmm.
always trying to catch his tail, and that's the
Hmm.
problem.
Yeah.
You will go from one favorite to another favorite to another favorite. Eventually, when you look back after 3 4 years, you say, "यार ये क्यों किया मैंने?"
Yeah.
Maybe the person who sat invested would have had a better outcome. Maybe.
Yeah. राघव जी, मुझे हमेशा से लगता है कि ignorance is one of the best things to have. Okay. I
Yes.
remember जब मैंने इन्वेस्ट करना शुरू किया था, and
Ignorance and laziness. Sorry, I must.
ignorance and laziness, I
Laziness
think,
is
are the
here.
best ways to make money in equity.
Yes. Yes.
क्योंकि I remember 2008 में जब recession हुआ था, तब मैंने अपना had just started off my career, and I remember कि मेरा SIP चल रहा था, मैंने कुछ react नहीं किया because इतना bother नहीं किया, और तब ऐसा नहीं है कि हम apps के through invest करते थे, right? तब
Yes.
we
Yes.
had a distributor and they would send the report once in a while, तो उतना ट्रैक भी नहीं करते थे पोर्टफोलियो को, तो तब मेरा इन्वेस्टमेंट्स होता गया, एंड देन तब मैंने जब 2010 में अपने एमबीए के लिए पैसा निकाला, तो आई हैड ह्यूज रिटर्न्स, एंड आई
Yes.
थिंक दैट वाज बिकॉज ऑफ इग्नोरेंस मोर देन एनीथिंग एल्स.
Yes.
And I have always believed in the 20 years of investing that I've been doing since I was in college. मुझे लगता है अगर आप सिर्फ कंसिस्टेंसी के साथ ही इन्वेस्ट कर लो, इरिस्पेक्टिव ऑफ द फंड्स यू सेलेक्ट, आप कोई भी अच्छा इक्विटी फंड उठा लो ना आज के टाइम में, आपको
Absolutely.
रिटर्न्स दे देगा.
Absolutely.
And just diversify your portfolio. Like you said, multi-asset funds are great. Flexi caps are my favorite. I like BAF as a category.
Absolutely. Yes.
तो मुझे लगता है ये दो तीन चार कैटेगरीज में आप लंबे समय तक इन्वेस्टेड रहो ना, बिना देखे कि मार्केट किधर जा रही है, क्या हो रहा है आपके पोर्टफोलियो के साथ, यू विल मेक योर मनी.
Absolutely.
बट आई थिंक
But, but,
कंसिस्टेंसी इज द
but,
बिगेस्ट प्रॉब्लम.
but what I also do, Namrata, is which I've started doing, especially in the last 8 10 years, is that I've started doing a financial checkup once in a year.
या
So
एब्सोल्युटली.
मुझे
या
मुझे एक हेल्थ चेकअप जो हम लोग करते हैं,
या
टिपिकली से, एज यू गेट ओल्डर, आपको एक एनुअल हेल्थ चेकअप करना चाहिए. तो मैं
यस.
टिपिकली यूज either December or March as a period.
या
Just look at my portfolio
या
and just see that, yeah, is something become too much,
या
something become too little.
या
So
श्योर.
what this has helped me do is two, three things. It has helped me to top up categories or cut back categories.
या
If I
एब्सोल्युटली.
find, for example, that 24, thanks to equity market appreciation, the equity portfolio is much, much more than what it should be, then thoda trim karke you can take it out and put it somewhere else.
या
And then, of course, that choice is there. You put it, and like I said, the mutual funds have so many
या
choices. They give you multi-asset, and of course, अगर वो भी नहीं करना आपको तो ठीक है. Then, like you rightly said, आप एक multi-asset चुन लो, BAF चुन लो, एक अपना flexi cap चुन लो, and between these 3 4 categories, you leave it and let it go.
you leave it and
The
let
only,
it
the
go.
only advice I will give, because this is a feature which is available now, which I think investors are not using well, is SIP top up.
Yeah.
So I think if somebody asked me, "यार, what would you have changed in your investment journey?" I would have done an SIP top up. अगर उस टाइम होते नहीं थे. When you started SIPs 20 years back.
Yeah.
Yeah, my SIP journey also is about 25 years old.
Yeah.
But those days you didn't have it. I mean, if you
Yeah.
wanted to top up, आपको एक नया SIP चालू करना पड़ता.
Correct.
So if you wanted to go from 5 to 6, today that's possible. I mean, you can say put money, say hypothetically in a 360 fund, and say give an advance instruction that every year I want to top up by 5 or 10%.
Hmm.
Oh, and also remember, so if you do that, I think obviously that gives you much more, auto, I would call it auto saving increase.
Auto saving increase.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But coming back to the whole consistency topic and SIPs के बारे में आप खुद भी बात कर रहे थे. दिसंबर में भले ही हमारा म्यूचुअल फंड इन्वेस्टमेंट्स इन जनरल बढ़ा, SIPs बहुत रुका है. 4.5 million SIPs was stopped in the month of December. And I think it was pretty disheartening to see कि investors ऐसे react कर रहे हैं based on volatility. दो मुझे लगता है कि शायद वो समय होता है कि आप और पैसा ऐड करते हैं. And we saw SIPs reducing in terms of number. What would you just want to add to it? I know we've spoken about SIP, आपने अभी बताया है, but I want you to tell the viewers कि this is a great opportunity, right? So आप ये समझाइए कि आपके experience में in the last 20-25 years of investing, आपको ये opportunity कैसे, how it has really changed for you, right? कि SIPs ideally नहीं रोकना चाहिए. आप एक example के through समझा सकते हैं तो it'll be great.
No, so Namrata, as I said, unfortunately मैं इंडस्ट्री में 25 साल रहा हूँ.
Yeah.
तो ये मेरा सेवन, दिस इज नॉट अ क्रैश फॉर मी. मुझे क्रैश तो 30-40% के बाद मुझे वो सी वर्ड आ जाता है. तो एक तो प्लीज डियर इन्वेस्टर्स, 10% इज अ करेक्शन, नॉट अ क्रैश. नंबर वन.
Yeah.
नंबर टू, आपने अगर द मिस्टेक आई मेड व्हेन आई स्टार्टेड एस आई पीज वॉज आई थॉट इट वॉज फैशनेबल. हाँ ठीक है, आई वॉज ऑलवेज, इंडियंस आर वेरी गुड एट सेविंग मनी बिकॉज वो अपना अंदर है, खून में है. दैट इफ एनीबडी, मे बी टॉक टू
Yeah.
a new employee to senior people, they want to save and they want to keep some money aside.
Sure.
Irrespective, and this is something I found very interesting because we have all feel that the new generation is spendthrifts and they use all their money on Apple phone खरीदते हैं, ये खरीदते हैं, वो खरीदते हैं. I don't think so.
Even I don't think so. Yeah.
I don't think so. जो मैंने बात किया है बहुत लोग के साथ, I have, thanks to my position, I get a chance to interact with a lot of people. Many
Yeah.
of them are young children. Many of them are young, and they're very worried and they're very happy to talk about their future.
Yeah.
If you give them a number that you have to save 20-30% of your savings, they're very happy to listen to you. They don't scoff at you. I think the challenge for them is that they then get into sips. They think that it's a magic wand. So हमारा sip चालू हो गया है.
Yeah.
Now in the next 1 year we'll all become crorepati's. Doesn't work, unfortunately. Right? So I think 2-3 things one must take into account. That sips are, if you can attach that sip to a goal, that'll be fantastic.
Yeah.
So the easiest thing I tell, like, I have a son who's just started to work. I tell him, yeah, you plan 30 years ahead for your retirement. So obviously he started laughing. He said, Dad, abhi to chalu hai. I just started working. Where are you making me retire? I said, no, the faster you do it, the better your corpus.
Yeah.
When you do that and then you say you have a 25-year time frame in your mind, then ये 5, 7, 10, 15% correction doesn't affect you.
Correct.
So that's goal number one. Goal number two we've spoken about is जहाँ पे भी आपको, where there is some additional money coming to you in the form of a salary increase or some money comes suddenly, you may, like you rightly said, many of your viewers do stock market trading. If you made some extra money there, try and add that to your core portfolio. The faster you do it, that much your ability to generate higher corpus increases, right? Number three, lastly, is that if you are uncomfortable about taking advice about यार ये market 10-15% गिरेगा and I should add money, because obviously when market corrects 10-15% is when pessimism takes over. So anything you read, any conversation you have will all be about pessimism. अरे ये problem हो रहा है, ट्रम्प ये कर रहा है, वहाँ पे यूक्रेन में ये प्रॉब्लम चल रहा है, इजराइल whatever war is happening, इंडिया में देखो कुछ काम ही नहीं हो रहा है, सब प्रोजेक्ट डिले हो रहे हैं. The narrative completely changes to becoming very pessimistic, right? At that time, if you don't want to add, because that's tough, I understand, but if you can't do that, don't stop. Because आपका वो investment journey आप तोड़ रहे हो.
Yeah.
It is like, let's say, Namrata, I want to come and see you in Bangalore. I have got on to the car. I'm driving. I see a huge traffic jam, and I decide, yeah, I don't want to get down. I'll now get down and I'll start walking. Or I'll change my mode, or I'll say, नहीं नहीं अभी मैं कुछ ढूंढता हूँ. I'll find somewhere. Then eventually what happens is you have to be patient. These things happen. I mean, last 3 years we've had a very good dream run. We've not, like you rightly said, had serious correction. अगर हुआ भी है तो 1, 2, 3, 4 हफ्ते के बाद they go all the way back. It's very short and sweet. Lot of events have happened. It justified a correction, but हुआ नहीं. I mean, to my mind, Ukraine war justified a huge correction. I mean, elections uncertainty should have had some market fallout. Israel was, to my mind, a big problem, because as I said, हमारा सबसे बड़ा import is oil. A lot of that oil comes from the region where there is a war happening.
Conflict, yeah.
तो logically आप सोचो when you're sitting in my chair, you would have said यार ये war चालू हुआ तो we should have had a Sensex correction. हुआ नहीं.
Hmm.
Now you're seeing a correction happening because of whatever I said. थोड़ा economy
Yeah.
slowed down. But given the resilience of Indian economy, हमारा जो you know we are the youngest nation in the world, right? वो एक अलग ही है. That momentum is very different. And that momentum, I think, is coming back. So if you allow that to happen, I think you will automatically, in fact, if you have add to equity, अगर नहीं कर सकते हो तो आपका SIP तो बंद मत करो.
Sure. Okay.
So please
Okay.
don't do that. Continue that journey at least. Don't do that.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think the good thing is thanks to people like you, 5-6 years back when something like this used to happen, SIP बंद भी होता था and money will get redeemed.
Hmm.
Abhi, maybe the first one is yet happening, like you rightly said.
Yeah.
45 million, I'm sorry, 4.5 million, 45 lakh people have closed their SIPs. But
Correct.
fortunately, the second one has not yet happened. So people are saying, ठीक है, we'll close, but ये जो existing corpus जो बना है, वो उसको छोड़ देते हैं.
उसको छोड़ देते हैं.
उसको छोड़ देते हैं, which is also not a bad thing. But
Okay.
ideally, please don't at that 45. I think that 45 lakh people should come back in the month of January, February.
Okay. All right. Now, just switching tangents a bit, Raghav. Let's understand ki, you are the CEO of 361 AMC, and you have multiple funds. तो आप हमें ये बताइए कि for your AMC, for your different funds, आपका stock selection process क्या रहता है? So just want to get little insights about your stock selection process. ऐसा होता है कि कोई बहुत important financial metrics हैं जो आप देखते हैं for different companies. So tell us, कि आप, is
No,
there any
it's
specific
actually
process जो आप,
Namrata, it's actually very simple,
okay,
And as I said, the devil is in the execution, not in the conversation.
yeah,
So we rank. We have two axes, X and Y. So one axis has return on profit growth of 15%,
okay,
right? PAT growth of 15%. So all companies. So we look at all we almost track about 700 plus companies
okay,
which fit into our investment requirements based on liquidity, etc., etc. And then we have a quadrant which has profit growth 15% and return on capital 15%. And this is we track it over the last 10 years.
okay.
So we are not getting carried away by last 2 year income, etc.
Short-term returns, yeah.
If I get companies in both, I call them secular companies.
Mm-hmm.
If I get companies giving me profit growth but not return on capital, I call them cyclical companies. If I get companies giving me return on capital, so just to give you an example, say in the cyclical companies, you will get all your telecoms, etc.
Okay,
Which have given you great profit growth in the last 3-4 years, but return on capital is yet below 15%.
okay,
And if companies don't fit both the criteria, we call them value traps. Now, what we look at are for companies through a combination of various things: management change, new products, new collaborations, new shareholders, who are moving from these three quadrants, which is value, defense, and cyclical, into secular.
mm,
Ultimately, all this is constructed into a price.
okay,
So we look at return on capital invested as a very, very important metric. We look at profit growth as a very important metric, but then we align it to the price. And for
okay,
that, we look at price to book ratio. So these 3-4 things is a big model. In fact, we use a lot of automotive internally. A lot of these things which I'm talked about is actually built, it's been created as an internal system which runs it. And the other thing, of course, which I think I must credit my CIO to Anup, is an extremely transparent person. So every week, in fact, as I'm speaking to you today is Wednesday. Wednesday from 9 in the morning to 6:30 in the evening, all the members of his team, whether they are a junior analyst to CIO, all the people who run, who are part of the research process, all sit together and discuss stocks and the market and all the other things in a common platform. So there's a lot of transparency in the entire research process, which is
mm,
very unique to 361. But mota
wow,
mota, this is the thing. It's very simple. So it's like if you and so people say, sir, why should it's so easy? So I said it's an easy process. The fun is in the discipline in
mm,
tracking that on a day basis, looking at each company, looking at each sector, looking at each and in the context of whatever is happening. हमारा में जो context में सब चल रहा है, all the stuff
okay,
you spoke about in terms of economy
okay,
slowdown, etc. And then obviously taking action wherever required. So I think
okay.
that's the fun part of it. Yes.
ओके, वंडरफुल। ऑलराइट, सो राघव, अब हमें ये बताइए कि इन द ईयर 2025 अगर हम 3 फोकस एरिया पिक करें, तो वो 3 फोकस एरिया क्या होने चाहिए? आपको क्या लगता है कि इस साल में पैसा सबसे ज़्यादा कहाँ बनेगा? Where do you think wealth will be created in 2025? And give me 3 focus areas from your perspective.
मुझे I like the energy transition theme, Namrata. So in
Okay.
any format, I mean, you can call it renewables, you can call it wind, solar, whatever, but there is a transition happening.
Okay.
Uh, Purane coal-fired plants also are being forced to convert, and so this is whole. If you ask me, in the last, of course, with President Trump coming in, thoda wo green efforts will come down a bit, but
Mhm.
global warming is a fact of life, and I mean a lot of things I that you're seeing आजकल आप दुनिया में देखोगे, starting from the LA wildfires to things happening in the Arctic region are all in some sense related to global warming. So I think
Yeah.
as you go ahead, I think energy transition is a big thing, right? So I think if you ask me, that's a very big area. I think if you ask me, the other one is that this whole India as a manufacturing hub will continue,
Mhm.
because I think the government is very, very clear that we need to
Mhm.
much more solid manufacturing base to be making India really competitive, or a Viksit Bharat. You know, without manufacturing, rest of it doesn't make sense. And of course, let's not forget the last part, which is the whole services where we are very dominant.
Okay.
जैसे GCC is an area like global capability centers. There's no listed company in that space, but
Yeah.
15% of our exports are now happening through GCCs. So services are anyway a big part of our life. Of course, we have the whole manufacturing thing which is coming, and of course, and services के नीचे आपके सब आ जाएंगे. But of course, I think two three areas where there is some, let's say, where nothing has happened. Is consumption stocks have really done nothing over the last 3 4 years.
Sure.
So I think that's an area where I think you should. We are looking at it carefully. We've not had
Okay.
any great exposure to it, vis-a-vis the benchmark. But yeah, it is an area of interest in that sense.
Okay.
So I think that's something that you should, these three things, and of course, all these three things will play simultaneously together. Because if you see, if you look at 100,000 feet view on top, I think we are the only country, you know, आपको पता होगा, Paris Accords got signed about 7 years back, जहाँ पे there was a commitment made by many countries to get out of, set of, polluting energy into clean energy.
Yeah.
And India is the only place country in the world, big, uh, really large economy, which has been able to achieve that part of it. And I think
Mhm.
उसमें बहुत सारा काम लास्ट 4 5 साल में हुआ है. So let's say wind energy or solar, we've just really picked it up a lot, right? I think that's another great space which is just going to come. And उसके साथ बहुत सारे ancillary भी है. Let's say EVs, then you have the whole, the whole EV space is just a function of that. So
Yeah.
essentially, what are you doing? आप एक polluting गाड़ी को आप clean energy में transport कर रहे हो,
Mhm.
right? And then obviously the whole infrastructure behind it. Our charging station नहीं है, so some company which wants to put in charging stations. Let's say now there are lots of large groups which are looking at that to set up
Yeah.
charging stations. So you see there are a lot of opportunities on this curve. On the manufacturing side, it's been a great story in the last 3 4 years. I mean, आप कल का ईटी में देख रहा था that Apple iPhones now have crossed 1 lakh crores in terms of products. It's a crazy number. I mean, 5 years back, Namrata, we were importing this.
Yeah.
तो ये पूरा import substitution का काम. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
that company is not listed, but apparently आएगा. I mean, at some point of time, with lots of quality issues are also happening now. A lot of quality IPOs. So many of these companies जो मैं बात कर रहा हूँ are also in the process of getting listed. So lots of
Mhm.
excitement, lot of exciting new companies also coming into market now, and hopefully expected to come in the future also.
Yeah, yeah. So Raghav, just adding to this, like you said, कि ऐसे बहुत सारी companies होंगी जो शायद in the near future they'll get listed, and हम देख रहे हैं कि in the last few years, right? हमने देखा है कि there's a lot of interest around mid cap and small cap space, right?
Yeah,
ये हमने discuss नहीं किया है in this whole podcast, but I do think कि it's worth discussing क्योंकि बहुत सारा interest है in the mid cap and small cap
yeah,
space, right?
yeah.
I mean, personally, मुझे लगता है कि शायद मैं डरती थी to be investing in these categories when I was younger, but I understand the value today, right? क्योंकि ऐसी बहुत सारी companies हैं, like you said, जो जब list होंगी शायद they'll fall in the small cap category or maybe lesser, but then eventually शायद वो mid caps होगा future के या maybe large caps of the future, right?
Absolutely.
So when we talk about mid caps, I think एक जो वर्ड हमने मिड कैप और स्मॉल कैप के लिए पिछले कितने सालों से सुना है, ओवर वैल्यूएशन की। ओवर वैल्यूड है, फिर भी लोग इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं, राइट? अभी हमने देखा है द मिड कैप्स एंड स्मॉल कैप इंडस्ट्रीज हैव डेफिनेटली करेक्टेड, लेकिन क्या आपको लगता है कि अभी भी ओवर वैल्यूएशन है, या डू यू थिंक ये अच्छा समय है इन्वेस्ट करने का? मुझे लगता है मिड कैप स्मॉल कैप के लिए ऑनेस्टली कोई भी समय ठीक है, बिकॉज अगर आपने सही जगह इन्वेस्ट किया तो लॉन्ग टर्म में तो आप पैसा बना ही लोगे। शॉर्ट टर्म में ऑफ कोर्स वॉलेटिलिटी रहेगी, एंड दैट्स समथिंग वी नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड। लेकिन अब अपना पर्सपेक्टिव बताइए मिड कैप स्मॉल कैप, बिकॉज आपने अभी तक इसके बारे में बात नहीं की है इन द लास्ट 45 minutes of this conversation. So tell us about your view on this.
नहीं, it's a Namrata, it's a बहुत अच्छा question है. In fact, I was waiting when you will ask me because it seems to be the hot topic and rightfully
Hot
so.
topic.
Rightfully so. I mean, it's
Rightfully so, yeah.
see initially मुझे बहुत डर लगता था because I saw a lot of money coming. So 2018 was a point where small cap, mid caps are really much cheaper than large caps actually.
Yep.
If you go and see, and many of us in those days tried to go out into the market and tell customers that यार इस category को please छोड़ना मत.
Hmm.
It's a great wealth creation category. There's enough of track record. आपने जो बोला था absolutely right है that companies get listed, become small cap, mid cap. There are enough companies who have done this transition. हाँ,
Absolutely.
because the number is large, there are enough companies also which have not delivered great returns.
Yeah.
And मुझे लगता है ऐसा है कि this is one place where there's a fair amount of work that an institutional fund manager can do for you. Because इसमें the amount of data available on these things are not as much as a large cap company. इनके
Sure.
stock coverage कम होते हैं. So there's a lot of, let's say, identification of many opportunities like this.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the time, I was worried over the last 2 years because obviously last 3-4 years post COVID, mid cap, small caps have really done well, right? So we've always had this sort of cautionary, speed bump ahead kind of
Yeah.
image when I talk of mid cap, small cap, and
Mm-hmm.
because as an industry veteran, I've seen people lose a lot of money on mid cap, small caps,
Okay.
and that is something which distresses me. So whether एक चीज हो गया हमारे इंडस्ट्री में that when customer loses money, there is a feeling that everybody gets upset. Obviously, the customer is upset. I mean, platforms are upset. We are upset.
Mm.
We are very worried about that. That यार ये लोग आ रहे हैं 3 साल 2 साल रिटर्न देख के पैसा खोना नहीं चाहिए, right? So I think the important thing for any mid cap, small cap investment is exactly what you said in the beginning, that you have to give these investments time.
Yeah.
And hence my belief is ये सब चीज ना अगर आप SIP through करोगे तो I think the investment experience will be far safer for you. So
Okay.
people who are coming into mid caps, small caps for the first time, my suggestion is SIP karo. Get a taste of it. Because over a 3 year period, you will have a good year, you will have a bad year, you will have a very bad year. And you will then be able to understand, are you able to take that और आप digest कर पाते हो क्या? क्या आपका फ्यान सडनली आपने पैसे डाला 10 रुपए में फॉर एग्जाम्पल 8 रुपए हो गया.
Hmm.
How do you feel when that 8 rupees hits you? If you're comfortable, then you are a great investor. Most people are very uncomfortable. मतलब most people, why 8 rupees? Even if that 10 rupees becomes 9 rupees, नम्रता उनको दुख होता है.
Hmm.
आपको भी दुख होता है, but then we can't see many people come on their own and they invest. No,
Yeah.
and that's the great thing about platforms like yours. It's extremely democratic. इसको जहाँ पैसे डालना है, there are a set of data available. You study the data and then you go wherever you want. Nobody. So I think yes, but today if you look at valuation, definitely overvalued,
Yeah.
especially since large caps have fallen more than mid caps in the last couple of months. It looks even better to look at large caps. So as a house view, we like large caps because it's a safer bet, right? And especially when there is a lot of uncertainty around you, large caps are a easier place to invest. They give you a moat, they give you safety
Yeah.
because they are large. They've got these huge, systems behind them. Companies they have seen life. Many of them are 20, 30-year-old companies. For them, wars have happened, oil price has gone up. All these things, जो हम लोग आज बात कर रहे हैं, they've experienced it, they've handled it, and they've gone out of it. Now, in a mid cap, small cap place, we don't know.
Hmm.
And that's where it becomes very company specific. Because if you're a great company and you have the right management and the right product and all that, then you will be able to weather any storm. But many of them are not able to do it. Number two, obviously, many of those companies are trading at very high valuations.
Yeah.
I mean, more than 50% of the companies in the small cap space are trading at a PE of 50 times and above. which is double the market PE today, mota mota. That it's just an indicator. इसमें please don't read too much into it, but it's an indicator that ये थोड़ा expensive है. इसमें से there'll be some companies will be genuinely growing at 40-50% a year, so maybe paying a price of 50p is allowed. But many companies are just doing that because there is some story around them. या कुछ
Yeah.
नेगेटिव निकला है क्या ये कंपनी ये प्रोडक्ट मेक करने वाली है, hence the market has already given you that multiple. Now, if they don't do that, then the fall can be quite steep, and that
Okay.
unfortunately is a fact of mid cap and large cap. Mid
Yeah.
cap and large cap stocks. I mean, of course, in crisis, large cap also falls. Both हैं, but there are many companies, and I'm sure if you research it on the Groww site, you will find it. In this last correction of say 8, 10, 11%, there are many companies, mid and small cap, who have fallen much, much more than that.
Okay.
So that's the only thing that you have to do. So my advice in mid cap, small cap for a first time investor, Namrata, is be happy with SIPs. Go through that experience, see how you feel on a market.
Yeah.
Right now, everyone's feeling great because last 3-4 years, mid cap, small caps are giving you fantastic return.
Yeah.
Obviously, when you make great money, you feel very happy about it. Great, congratulations. You selected the fund, you've taken the risk. Obviously, it's your return to make. But just because of the last 3 years, don't assume that the next 5 years will also be like that.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
sorry, I mean, long answer for a very nice, tight question, but yeah.
No problem. So, जब हम considering you talk about mid caps and small caps, Raghav, जब market correction होता है, तो obviously mid caps, small caps जो हैं शायद पहले गिरते हैं, and then we have the large caps, and this, the reverse is true when the markets fall as well, when the markets go up. तो आप हमें ये बताइए कि अगर मैं मार्केट साइकिल्स को देखती हूँ, आपने शायद इन द लास्ट 25 years, एज यू मेंशन, बहुत सारे मार्केट साइकिल्स देखे होंगे. एज एन इन्वेस्टर मुझे मार्केट साइकिल्स के बारे में ऐसी 3 क्या चीजें हैं जो ध्यान में रखनी चाहिए, राइट? So when I'm looking at 3 things related to market correction या market cycles, what are those 3 things I should know about market cycles, right? As a veteran in the industry या someone जो बहुत cycles देख चुके हैं in your career, right? So tell us कि वो 3 चीजें क्या होंगी जो market cycles के बारे में मुझे पता होनी चाहिए. And this is one of the last few questions I have for you.
नहीं, it's been great fun talking to you, Namrata. I just hope it's educative for your viewers. Cycle is, see, I think the last 25-30 years, मैंने जो देखा है that at various points of time, various asset classes do well. Various asset classes के अंदर also various things do well. So let's say, जैसे आपने rightly बोला था, last say 4-year cycle since COVID, it's now almost 5 years since 2020, COVID last time, equity markets have done very well.
Yeah.
उनके अंदर if you take, obviously small cap, mid cap have done exceedingly well, large caps later. उनके नीचे भी एक segment आता है which is all your thematics and your sectorial funds. So certain sectors have done really well, like let's say hypothetically, if someone had invested in PSU banks in 2020, fabulous return today, right?
Yeah.
Somebody had invested in defense 2021, fabulous returns today. There have been some sectors like I told you, consumption, FMCG, जितने अच्छे नहीं किए वहाँ पे. So that's basically the cycle. And उनके अंदर भी within that equity style there is a value and there is a growth.
Yeah.
So obviously 2015 to 2020 was a growth cycle in the growth stocks did very very well. Value ने कुछ किया ही नहीं था. Last 5 साल में growth value has done very well, growth has not done well.
Okay.
मोटा मोटा this is a cycle, right? And this is a natural play of markets, right? So of course now it's been almost 4-5 years since the value has done well. There is a section of the market which feels that now growth, especially quality growth, will come back into markets because many of the stocks which were there in 2020 were trading at very very high multiples have all come down because 4-5 साल में those companies have grown, but उनके stock price कुछ हुआ नहीं वहाँ पे. So they become quite reasonable in that sense. So this is a normal cycle, right? And the way to play it is exactly like I said in the beginning. As a retail investor, very difficult to play these cycles because you don't know what's in fashion, what's out of fashion.
Yeah.
So the easiest way to do it is to, if you want to capture the entire asset cycle, then obviously multi-asset funds are a great place because they give you all the event avenues to put money in a very, very easy format with very, very low amounts of money, right? If you want to capture all the market capitalizations, flexi cap is a great place because then you can get benefit of large, mid, small, leave it to the fund manager, hopefully they do it. For more evolved investors, of course, the second step comes in. Then you decide, मुझे equity में इतना डालना है. So within equity, I have a time frame, say 5-10 years. उतने पैसे मैं small cap में डाल दूंगा. I have money for 5 years. That money I will put in large caps, etc., etc.
हाँ,
I have 3 year money. I can put that into debt. I have say some commodity exposure I want. तो मैं थोड़ा gold ETF खरीद लूंगा, थोड़ा silver ETF खरीद लूंगा. So that's also possible. I mean, both options are available to you.
sure.
And substitute funds for stocks if you're a very good investor. That's all.
Okay.
It's just
Okay.
very simple. I mean, it's just
Wonderful. Okay.
so. I think that's the fact of cycles. It's a part of life.
Hmm.
Difficult part about a cycle is you don't know when something is ending and when something is starting.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Hence, it's
I think.
better to give it to a professional rather than.
Yeah.
At least I do that because I'm very poor at these things, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think cycles का वही है कि there are different sectors, there are different market capitalizations that do well in a particular market cycle. तो वो decide करना या वो analyze करना कि कब market cycle शुरू हो रही है, कब खत्म हो रही है, बहुत मुश्किल होता है
correct,
as an investor.
correct,
आप बहुत ही ज़्यादा evolved investor हो तब शायद आप थोड़ा बहुत analyze कर पाओ. But
correct.
even then it's very tough. Even then it's very tough. Yeah.
It's not an easy thing. I mean,
It's not an easy thing. Yeah.
people have made their careers out of these things, Namrata, and even they have not done very well at points of time. So that's the challenge.
Like हम बोल सकते हैं कि अभी मार्केट नीचे है बट शायद और नीचे जा सकता है एंड वी डोंट नो
We don't.
राइट व्हाट इज लो एंड व्हाट इज हाई इज
Don't know.
nobody knows that.
No, so when I started my career, the Nifty was 1,000.
Yeah.
And when it went to 2,000, so people said, ये तो double हो गया, बहुत ज़्यादा हो गया. But it
Correct.
hit 5,000 Namrata and people started panicking, saying, ये तो 5,000 हो गया.
Hmm.
And, in various stages.
Yeah.
So I think one is don't get carried away by a number, 75,000 or 25,000. These are numbers.
Yeah.
As long as your underlying economy ठीक ठाक कर रहा है. And
Hmm.
yes, we had a bit of a slowdown in the first 5-6 months, which is evidenced by the number. But I think as I'm seeing that that slowdown hopefully is a thing of the past, and we are starting to see some pickup happening. Now, when that will happen, अगर ये जनवरी में होगा, फेब में होगा, मार्च में होगा, अप्रैल में होगा, that
वो
we
नहीं पता.
इनके बीच में you will have a lot of other events also. There'll be
Correct.
a Trump new president, there'll be election, बहुत सारे होगा. But as long as your economy and within that the companies that you are putting money in are doing well, up and hopefully you have a good set of people who are buying those companies for you through mutual funds. I think आपका काम हो गया.
Okay. Just one last question, and Raghav, ये question हम सबसे पूछते हैं because I do believe कि हर investor अलग-अलग तरीके से invest करते हैं and as an investor, so you tell us your personal investment journey कि जब आपने शुरू किया था invest करना, you've been a part of this industry for 2.5 decades, तो आपका journey कैसा रहा है in these 25 years and what are your learnings? आपने ऐसा क्या सीखा है as an investor जो आप हमारे viewers को pass on करना चाहेंगे?
So I must tell you a personal story, Namrata. I got my first big chunk of money, like everyone, like most of us, was I got it when I got married.
Yeah.
Obviously, बहुत सारे gift मिल जाते हैं उस time पे. So I thought I'm a great stock market punter. I went and bought a lot of stocks, right?
Okay.
Now, grace of God, I didn't put all my money into one stock or one or two other stocks. I put it across 7, 8 things. At that time, mutual funds were not there also. I mean, they were there, but they were not as efficient, as transparent as they are today. And that,
Yeah.
I must say, completely, if there was a 200 on 100 to the regulator to get that, process done for us.
Yeah.
So, and that my learning was that 2 out of those 10 actually did really well.
Mhm.
Managed to get some principal and some bank deposit returns around it, right?
Okay.
8 out of them are actually, if you ask me, in those days, we have physical certificates.
Hmm.
I yet maintain some of them to
Yeah.
just show myself what an idiot I was at that point of time, right? And
Yeah.
to bring yourself back to ground that the world of investing is easy, but it's also very complicated.
Yeah.
So don't do it as a part-time activity. करना है तो पूरा तरीका से करो, नहीं करना है तो फिर छोड़ दो. Give it to other people. And that is how my investing journey into MF started. And that's been a great journey. I mean, I have no complaints about that. Yes, we've gone through ups, downs, market cycles. Lots of things have happened. 25 saal mein, you can imagine things have changed. I was one of the few people who've been able to see so many governments. So when somebody tells me, sir, election, I'm okay. Right? I think mentally as a country now, we're getting a lot of self-confidence. So मुझे 10-15 साल पहले दिखता नहीं था.
Okay.
Number two, I think India is yet very underrepresented in the world scheme of things.
Yeah.
So, whatever we are talking, Namrata, today, Indian market cap is only 2 to 3% of the world market cap.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, we've done very well. 1 trillion से 5 trillion चले गए, etc., etc. Number of stock investors have gone up. New companies have come. So I think we have a long, long way to go before India really comes out to be what is called a really evolved or a developed market. And I think even
Sure.
today, large parts of our country have not been able to put money in and get wealth creation through stock markets or through mutual funds. I
Sure.
think so if you ask me, I can continue my journey again, go back
Hmm.
25 years back at today's level and work for another 25 years. And even then, we would not have had that kind of penetration.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, the third big trait in my life, which I must thank my bosses for, is that they kept me so busy that I was an extremely lazy investor.
Hmm.
Uh, so
So,
sometimes when I meet my colleagues and I tell them I'm making you work very hard, and obviously they say, "Sir, आप बहुत मेहनत कर रहे हो. You also, thanks to you, we also work hard." I said, "Boss, do that, but at the same time, please put your money away,
yeah.
about 20, 30, 40% away. Don't look at it. Be focused on your work. You
Yeah.
focus on growing your income, but at the same time, part of that income every year take and put it away into a nice long-term
Sure.
savings through a mutual fund." And yeah, and then I'm pretty confident when you see it after 15, 20 years, you'll feel very happy about yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wonderful. Sure. Thank you so much, Raghav. I think it was wonderful talking to you. I think जो मुझे सबने बोला था कि Raghav is a wonderful speaker. You've absolutely lived up to that
Thank you.
expectation.
Thank
Thank you so much for your time.
thank you so much.
I think बहुत कुछ सीखने के लिए मिला आपसे, and I think हमारे viewers को भी बहुत कुछ they'll have some practical takeaways जो शायद वो अपनी खुद की investment journey में implement कर पाएंगे.
I hope so.
So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Namita. Thank you, Grow. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Wow, that was such a wonderful conversation with Mr. Raghav. I'm sure आप सबको बहुत कुछ सीखने के लिए मिला होगा. तो जल्दी से जो भी हमने पॉइंट्स डिस्कस किए मैं आपके लिए समराइज कर देती हूँ. तो सबसे पहले हमने मिस्टर राघव के साथ डिस्कस किया कि अभी मार्केट्स काफी वॉलेटाइल हैं, सो व्हाट शुड एन इन्वेस्टर डू. सो मिस्टर राघव सेज कि आइडियली स्पीकिंग अगर हम 10% मार्केट क्रैश देख रहे हैं तो इन्वेस्टर्स को उतना स्ट्रेस नहीं लेना चाहिए. ऐसे टाइम्स को व्हेन द मार्केट्स आर लोअर यू शुड लुक एट दीज एज एन अपॉर्चुनिटी टू इन्वेस्ट मोर मनी, क्योंकि पहले स्टॉक मार्केट काफी ओवर वैल्यूड थी. ही ऑल्सो सेज कि एज एन इन्वेस्टर आपको जो अपने पोर्टफोलियो को डाइवर्सिफाई करना चाहिए और असेट एलोकेशन के ऊपर फोकस करना चाहिए. ही सेज एट द एंड ऑफ द डे अगर आप ऐसी अपॉर्चुनिटीज को लेवरेज करेंगे that's when you will make your money in the long run. फिर हमने मिस्टर राघव के साथ डिस्कस किया कि equity funds ने compared to all other investments अच्छे returns दिए हैं in the long run, and what does he have to say about that? So Mr. Raghav says कि of course अगर हम equity funds की बात करें तो in the long run वो आपको अच्छे returns दे सकते हैं, एंड आपका एक अच्छा एलोकेशन इक्विटी फंड्स में होना चाहिए. इक्विटी फंड्स में आपको फंड मैनेजर का भी बेनिफिट मिलता है जो आपके पैसे को मैनेज कर रहे हैं. लेकिन किसी भी इन्वेस्टर की वेल्थ क्रिएशन जर्नी के लिए असेट एलोकेशन बहुत जरूरी है, विच मीन्स कि सिर्फ स्टॉक मार्केट पर नहीं डिपेंड करना चाहिए और आपको अपना थोड़ा पैसा फिक्स्ड इनकम इन्वेस्टमेंट्स में भी डालना चाहिए. फिर हमने मिस्टर राघव के साथ डिस्कस किया कि बहुत सारे इन्वेस्टर्स ने रिसेंटली मार्केट वॉलिटिलिटी की वजह से अपनी एसआईपीज को रोका है. सो मिस्टर राघव सेज कि जो 10% मार्केट फॉल होता है उसको हम मार्केट क्रैश नहीं बोलते हैं. दैट्स रियली जस्ट अ करेक्शन. जब हम एसआईपीज की बात करते हैं बहुत सारे इन्वेस्टर्स को लगता है एसआईपी एक मैजिक वॉन्ड है जिससे मैं क्विक रिटर्न्स बना लूंगा, बट ऐसा नहीं होता है. एसआईपीज शुड बी इन्वेस्टेड फॉर लॉन्ग टर्म एंड शुड बी डन कंसिस्टेंटली. ही सेज कि जब आप एसआईपीज में इन्वेस्ट करते हैं तो आप उसको अपने फाइनेंशियल गोल्स के साथ लिंक कर सकते हैं, एंड यू शुड कंटिन्यू योर एसआईपी नो मैटर व्हाट द मार्केट कंडीशन इज. फिर हमने मिस्टर राघव से पूछा कि कौन से सेक्टर्स अच्छा कर सकते हैं. मिस्टर राघव सेज कि सबसे पहले एनर्जी ट्रांजिशन स्पेशली विद द फोकस ऑन रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी कुड डू वेल. ही ऑल्सो सेज कि मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सेक्टर अच्छा कर सकता है क्योंकि इसको गवर्नमेंट का बहुत सपोर्ट है. कंजम्पशन एज अ सेक्टर ऑल्सो कुड डू वेल क्योंकि इट्स अ बिग एरिया ऑफ इंटरेस्ट. फिर हमने मिस्टर राघव के साथ मिड कैप और स्मॉल कैप फंड्स के बारे में बात करी, एंड मिस्टर राघव सेज कि जो सबसे जरूरी चीज होती है जब आप मिड और स्मॉल कैप फंड्स में इन्वेस्ट करते हैं दैट्स टाइम, एंड यू शुड स्टे इन्वेस्टेड फॉर लॉन्ग टर्म. ही ऑल्सो सेज कि एसआईपी एक बहुत अच्छा तरीका होता है मिड कैप और स्मॉल कैप फंड्स में इन्वेस्ट करने का. He also says कि जब आप मिड और स्मॉल कैप फंड्स में इन्वेस्ट करते हैं तो पास्ट रिटर्न्स को मत देखिए क्योंकि जो रिटर्न्स आपको इस कैटेगरी में पिछले 3 साल में मिले हैं वो शायद आगे ना मिले. फिर हमने मिस्टर राघव से उनकी कुछ लर्निंग्स के बारे में पूछा फ्रॉम इक्विटी मार्केट्स, एंड मिस्टर राघव सेज कि सबसे पहले तो इक्विटी एक पार्ट टाइम एक्टिविटी नहीं होना चाहिए. अगर आपको इक्विटी में इन्वेस्ट करने के बारे में नहीं पता है तब आप इक्विटी फंड्स के थ्रू इन्वेस्ट कर सकते हैं जहां एक फंड मैनेजर आपके पोर्टफोलियो को मैनेज कर रहे हैं. He also says be a lazy investor, अपना पोर्टफोलियो बहुत रेगुलरली चेक मत करिए. Get the right asset allocation and stay invested in equities for the long term. So that was about it in this particular episode. I do hope all of you had a wonderful learning experience. Thank you so much for watching this show. Please do like this video, share it with everyone, and please do subscribe to the Groww Mutual Fund channel, which is called Mutual Funds at Groww. Thank you.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.